You've heard me say before that God comes and meets us right where we're at. And this is how God decides to do relationship with everyone and anyone that's wanting to know him as he is, not what we want him to be and not what we project upon God and wish him to be. So then God is being revealed in a family in Ecuador and to somebody in Afghanistan, to somewhere in China, here in the United States. God is working with humanity everywhere in the way that they can receive him and understand him. So if we can understand that and, agree to that for us today, then that exact thing was happening in the time of the writing of the Old Testament and the New Testament 2,000, 4,000 years ago. Meaning God is there and he is entering into their world system, their belief system, their cosmology, and he is beginning to reveal himself in a way that those people would have understood God to be. And it just happens that when we open up the Bible and we read into the Genesis all the way to Revelation, we're entering into a suzerain vassal treaty framework. That is a Rosetta Stone for the Bible. And so when we have questions like, okay, did God, create or do genocide? Absolutely. Did God, was he pro-war? Yes, absolutely. Was there, colonization happening? Well, to some degree, yes. Why am I saying yes to all these questions? Because in the Bible, that was the worldview of that time, of that ancient Near Eastern time frame. Everybody was operating from a suzerain vassal world, in that known world, and how they interacted with other nations. This was how they did it. And it just happens that in their framework and in their mindset, the suzerain was, in their mindset, chosen by God to represent God. And in some cultures, the suzerain was God, right? Or one of the gods, right? And because of that, they had a divine right to demand and to claim the other nations around them full submission. This was the worldview that God had to work with as the Bible is being, orally shared, known, written down. And because of that, God is now telling the Israelites, I am your suzerain. These other nations, they are claiming that they are gods and that they are rule, but I'm telling you, I am the suzerain. I am the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and you are my vassal state, and you are going to be submissive to me. That was a relationship that God had with Israel, and this is called a suzerain vassal treaty, or better known in our vernacular, an old covenant, new covenant system. That is a treaty. That is a conditional agreement that they came together and agreed upon. And through this story that's being unveiled, that's been, historically documented, we're getting a little clip of what was God like? How did he interact with these people in that context and in that time frame? So we can't draw conclusions from our perspective and put it into the Bible. Rather, we got to go into the Bible and say, what was their thinking back then? And from that point, we could ask the questions that they would have been asking, not questions that we are asking today. So as I'm sharing this with you, try to help some of you guys come along into understanding why are there horrible things in the Bible. It's absolutely scandalous. I remember when I was a little girl, when I could read the Bible and I was reading the Bible and I understood what it was saying, I did not understand how God could be working with people. And there was all this nonsense going on. There was, rape, there was war, there was genocide, there was killings, murdering, sacrifice. There was all this stuff. And I was just like, I didn't understand, why is all of this written in the Bible. It's absolutely scandalous. Like, did God condone all of this behavior? Because I, as a little girl, was asking questions from my 1970s, 80s, 90s framework. And when we do that, we're asking the wrong questions. We're asking the wrong questions. And because we're asking the wrong questions and out of context, we are now assuming things about God that is not really there. And because of that, we've come now into Christianity, a lot of conclusions about God that is not true. That God is angry. He's always going into war. He's here to kill his enemies, the evil ones, like all of this language that's in the Bible. Well, if you read it in the context of, okay, God was their suzerain, and the suzerain had all of these responsibilities to a vassal state, then of course God would be doing all of these things, protecting Israel from their enemies. That was one of the roles that a suzerain would have to fulfill. Or if you obey, then the suzerain would bless you, right? Because it was a territorial mandate. It was a national mandate. It was not an individual mandate. So when we're talking about salvation in the Bible, it's referring to a national salvation. These are the things that we have to really talk about to better understand the Bible in that context. And in that time, yes, everybody practiced genocide. Everybody practiced war. Everyone did this. This was the world of the Bible, of the ancient world. This is how, cultures expanded and their empire, became prosperous. Like, this is how they did it. So God comes and he joins that system to then carve out a group of people that he calls out, and he says, you are the light of the world. And I, through working through you, is trying to establish the kingdom of God, because the suzerain was God in this case. And through that, other people will see that God is real. God is here working among each other, right? And so this is the text. This is a historical account. It's a record that we have. And if you want to better understand the Bible, that's the trip. That's the journey that we have to take to unpack the Bible. And so the greatest mistake is for us to read ourselves in the Bible all the time, because Christianity, or evangelical Christianity, fundamentalism, has taught us, hey, the Bible is just all for you and God's speaking to you. It's a love letter to you. No, that is not true. Yes, we can extract pieces and understanding of who God is through those examples, but we're never to replace it with something else. We were never to replace Judaism with another religious system. We were never to repeat what, the nation of Israel and Judah did again. In fact, what we're supposed to do in the Bible is we're reading the Bible so that we don't replace or repeat it. We should have already learned the lessons thereof, and now come into our time frame and live with God living in us, among us, dwelling here. This is heaven on earth.